Hello and welcome. You're viewing the Citizens Journalist podcast, Mesa County Compass, that brings you the news that you can use from a different point of view. I'm Ruth.
I'm Lisa.
And together we are Mesa County Compass. Our goal is to create an informed, current, active citizenry armed with the facts. We will be covering what's new to you, what it means to you, what you can do about it, and provide you access to the decision makers when we can. Good afternoon. Welcome to Mesa County Compass. We have this afternoon Cody Kennedy of the Grand Junction City Council. He's been with us before, but we asked him to come back again with some new and different updates. Yep. So welcome back, Cody.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes, and we appreciate you spending the time. And one of the things that we're concerned with is Wednesday is the first reading of the Sustainability and Adaptation Plan. And Monday is a workshop which people can attend and find out, what is being presented. And some of the things that we have heard about the presentation, and we've talked about it different ways, is the lack of this plan, not now, but in the future could have more teeth and also be very expensive. And a criticism that we heard from Dennis Simpson is when plans are presented, they're presented as if they were everybody's in favor of that because of a limited number of people that are involved. And it comes from city staff and the city manager, and you really aren't given a lot of options and pros and cons. Yeah. Would you agree with those ideas?
Well, there's more to it than that.
Okay.
My concern is that just like with our EV plan that was brought forward, city goes out and hires a consultant.
Right.
So, and I'm deeply concerned about the consultants they're hiring and why they're hiring specific consultants. And I'll premise this with I do care about our environment, and I think we should be good stewards.
Me too.
Full stop. Like no ifs, ands, or buts.
Right.
That said, we also need to be good stewards of our finances. We need to take care of the taxpayer's dollar. We have a fiduciary responsibility to that. And we need to use some common sense when it comes to enacting these kind of policies. When the city hired a firm out of Denver called the Lotus Group, that on their own website they call themselves a boutique engineering firm that has done environmental studies for places like City and County of Boulder, Hawaii, some other places, and they bring us these great ideas like we should eliminate even though we're in an EPA attainment zone, meaning we don't have an air quality problem here.
Right.
They think we should eliminate our buses that are powered by compressed natural gas, which is produced through Persigo, our wastewater treatment plant, which is a model for sustainability. People are from around the country and probably around the world look at that as a great example of how to do it right. But yet they think it's somehow, the Lotus Group thought it was a good idea for us to spend $1 million per bus.
Oh my.
Right? And put these EV buses on the street. And to me, that just screams the fact that it's not about making good decisions for Grand Junction. It's about trying to be the most environmental for the sake of being an environmentalist. So that concerns me greatly. And again, I love our environment, our community. We live in an amazing place. We should take care of it. Moving forward, as we looked at this sustainability plan, I had a lot of concerns about the amount of solar that it was pushing. And not because I'm against solar. I'm not against solar. What I'm against is the fact that most of the solar panels in our country now are produced in China, who's our enemy on a world stage.
Right.
Additionally, as these panels are being produced, they're utilizing slave labor, and they're utilizing coal-fired power plants that are these coal-fired power plants that China's bringing on every other week or so are not controlled environmentally. They don't have the environmental controls that we have to make sure that they're minimizing their impact on the environment. So if you want to be intellectually honest about caring for our environment, you would look at it from the inception point, where the process starts, to the very end point, not just when it magically appeared on a roof somewhere and then magically disappeared, poof, because that makes it, oh yeah, rainbows and butterflies, and it's all great.
Right.
But if you want to be honest about it, you would say, what's the overall impact of this choice for this solar panel? And what are we doing to our environment? And the slave labor alone should be enough for us to say, we won't do this. On the end of life, one of the concerns is most solar panels are not recycled. And they are toxic waste. Like that, given the components all together, they're classified as toxic waste. So if we're going to do this, and one of my suggestions was for the sustainability plan, was let's require, one, that they be ethically sourced materials, preferably sourced in the United States,
Right.
and that we require those panels to be recycled at the end of their life. Oh, that adds a lot of cost.
Right.
Well, the point is the cost is the environmental impact, right? So you're either going to pay that higher price or you don't care about the environment. So take your pick, right?
Right.
Right.
It's
and
one or
what,
the other.
What you're leaving is for our future generations to clean up our mess.
It's the same argument that they're using against oil and gas,
exactly.
right? To say that, oh, well, we can't have oil and gas because of its environmental impact. Okay, time out. Like, let's take a look at if we utilized, for instance, natural gas from the area that we live in, and we live over an enormous reserve
Right.
in the Piceance Basin of natural gas. And let's just say we utilize that and produce a carbon capture natural gas power plant
Right.
that could power our whole region. That is sustainable. That is a good choice, right? Not saying, hey, let's bring in these slave-produced, environmentally damaged solar panels that we're going to dump, this toxic waste into the dump on the backside of it. I mean, who's the environmentalist here? Here I am, somebody that I think of myself as a conservative. I also love the environment, and I think that so often I run into folks and I try to be nonpartisan in my role in city council, but I see this and it frustrates me. It frustrates me to no end, and I just can't get the traction to, obviously we all have a vote, and I respect my fellow council members to vote their conscience, but I feel like we're not being true to the what we're saying that we're trying to do in the sustainability.
Right.
So I'm sorry, a little bit of a diatribe
No,
there.
no, that's not
yeah.
a diatribe. But
Perfect.
do you feel like the other council members are just not informed, or is this the people that promote the entire plan and think it's wonderful and go through? I mean, I do think that how they see it, and on the surface, it does look like, oh my, we'd have this beautiful environment and everybody's biking around
Right.
and
But
everybody
are
has
they
their trees
trying
and
to leave
flowers.
a legacy
Right.
rather
So-
than trying to be practical about it?
So, a lot of questions there.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes.
Short answer to that is yes. I believe my fellow council members and myself as well. I'd love to leave a great legacy in Grand Junction. I love our community. Like, that is why I do what I do. That is why I am on city council, because I love Grand Junction. But to say, and again, you had several points there, but to the city council as a whole, sorry, I stumbled there a little bit, but city council as a whole, I think you were kind of asking about their level of understanding and whatnot.
Right.
I work with some very smart people on council.
Right.
They are very smart. We have some very different opinions about things, and that's fine. Like the people, we should have a diversity of opinions,
Right.
and we should come together and talk. I would like it if I got my way a little more often, right? Or once in a while even would be awesome. But
That's right.
but I really do see that that my fellow council members are trying to make decisions with their very best intention, right? For Grand Junction. Nobody's trying to hurt Grand Junction. Nobody does this job for, which is, as I told you before we
Right.
got on here, like, I'm working at like a full-time job
Right.
for $500 a month,
Right.
which is like $300 a month after all the deductions, and so I spend that much on coffee, buying coffee for other people, right? Just to have
Right.
conversations
Right.
in,
Yeah,
in Grand Junction on a monthly basis, and it's so nobody's doing this for their own benefit unless they have future
agenda.
political aspirations to do something elsewhere, and maybe that's the case. I can't speak for them. It's not what I do. I just love Grand Junction. So that's a tough one to say. Well, why are they pushing in that direction?
Right.
Maybe I'm not making an effective argument on my side. Maybe they have made up their minds in other ways, and maybe I'm not hearing some great points that they have. I mean, I'm certainly fallible. I don't know everything, especially in this topic. I read a lot, and I try to be informed. I try to approach it from an aspect of curiosity, of knowing that there's a lot I don't know. So I try to consume information from a lot of different sources, and yet it just it's hard for me to move or to push back when we get a giant document that's been produced by some outside consulting company that staff is totally in alignment with, and it's like, here you go, everybody agree? Yep, okay, right? And that's tough, because at the end of the day, the impact on the community isn't necessarily that document, but the policies that follow on that are in alignment with that document. And when staff says, hey, this aligns with the comp plan, this aligns with the EV plan, this aligns with our sustainability plan. And what am I going to say? Well, I don't like those things. Like, I mean, how do you argue with that? So, anyway.
So, and that is the question. How do you, if you can see that it isn't necessarily all the points. Again, Dennis was here and he said, well, we've got $3 million, but I don't see the push to have this done right now, and maybe take a little bit of time. And another thing that Dennis had mentioned, and you kind of agreed, is one plan is presented, and it's not presented with, well, here's 3 plans,
right,
not that you could choose from, but this plan would seem to do this, and give you the pros, and this is the good part about this plan, but maybe looking at it like you did and say, well, if we do the EVs, what about how are we going to get rid of the batteries, or what happens
the
to
intended
this?
consequences of every action needs to be looked at. You can't just take something and throw it at the wall and hope it sticks.
So,
and cost.
Right.
Yes.
Right. And those are good points. And to say that, as you pointed out, Councilmember Simpson brings forward that, hey, we're only kind of given one option. Do you like this or do you not? Here's a document that's got 275 pages in it.
Right.
And on page 35, I really disagree with something. How can I how can I fight that? Oh yeah, and also on page 252. Right, there's something else on paragraph 3 that I completely disagree with.
Right.
But if I don't pull those out now, even if I could, then later on we're building policy on that.
Right.
So and yes, Dennis is right. That this is these things are brought forward, and if staff agrees with them, it's hard for council to push back and say, yeah, what about this? And we're not given this option to say, how far, let's say it was like a gauge, right? From envision your gas gauge, like from empty to full, like where do we want to be on the spectrum for this study? It's either all the way or not at all, right? And that's not right. That's not good for the people.
It should be able to be presented in increments and everything looked at individually and say, okay, I can live with this.
Right.
We can implement this.
Yeah. Well, one of the problems with this is, and Dennis pushed back on this. And I mentioned this to you earlier, how I work this at like a full-time job, and for the $500 a month, and again, not complaining, I would do this for free. Not everybody can do that, right? I have a very flexible business that allows me to do that. But if you want diversity of thought, if you want smart people to be able to do this, you should pay, right? It should be paid like our county commissioners are paid. Our county commissioners are paid 6 figures to do the job they do.
Right.
We put in just as much time, right?
Absolutely.
At least some of us do. Not all of us. It's not required. But if our community wants to have council members that are engaged, that are reading everything. So I had a meeting the other day. It was on our EMS agreement with the county. That was I think at between 2 and 3 in the afternoon. 11 o'clock in the morning, I get a 60-page document. That's the source document, and I'd seen it before, but still, if you expect me to be available from 11 o'clock to 2 o'clock to read a 60-page document and really understand it and be prepared for a meet, that's something that you might expect at a job, not at a hey, can you do this in your spare time kind of a situation.
Well, even at a job that wouldn't be reasonable.
No. It's not, and it's frustrating that we get so much thrown at us, and then we have to make decisions when there isn't always time, and decisions need to be made. Like, we're dealing with a $322 million budget. We have 700 plus employees. There are a lot of moving parts. Our city is this great, growing, thriving community that needs our support to keep it moving. And we need to support our staff. We have some great staff, some smart folks. So we can't just not, or we can't just show up and say, "Oh yeah, sounds good." Right?
No, we would hope you would.
Our voters expect us to be thoughtful and to do the work to be aware of what we're voting on. So anyway, I kind of went a little bit down a rabbit trail.
No, that's fine.
And last time you told us that oftentimes you'll have 450 pages, and Dennis had said too, a lot of times you get it Friday afternoon. Well, you have a life too on the weekend, and who wants to read 450 pages?
Well, it might be 450. It might be 2,000, right? That we get on a Thursday or a Friday evening, and we have to have it digested and not only just read through, but also understood and figure out some type of cogent argument if we disagree with something by Monday.
Now that's something? How can you change that? How can that be changed? Is there anything that people can do? Because it seems to me like if there's 2,000 pages, that's ridiculous.
I agree.
There's got to be a lot of pork in there, just like the government.
Or just there's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense.
Well, then that's what I'm trying to say, not pork per se, but
I wouldn't classify it like pork as in a bill with extra things in it.
But more like AI generated. Somebody's going, I can do this, and I'll give you 4,000 pages.
It's hard to really kind of. It's like putting something in a crucible and really cooking it down to its essential elements, right? And it's hard to spend that time to really get down to it. I've asked staff that we get that documentation earlier. Like, let's say, if something is ready 2 weeks ahead of time, give it to us.
Right.
Don't wait until the very last minute. And I got a little pushback from our city attorney, who I respect. He does a lot of review. There's some issues that they need to make sure are worked out, that everything is consistent, and I understand that. But it's just for us to do a good job for our voters, it's a lot.
It's impossible.
If you did get that 2 weeks in advance, even though the city attorney hasn't approved of everything, at least you would have a general idea of what's happening.
Yeah. And I think, and I just can speak for myself, and I am sure the other council members do as well, but we all have a lot of other things going on within the city. I'm not just talking about our own professions, but for instance, right now I serve on the airport board. I'm on the Grand Junction Economic Partnership. I'm on the Museums of the West board. All of those boards have board meetings. They have subcommittees. They have their own issues that we have to work through. Hiring people, unexpected costs, air conditioners go down, problems with roof staffing, like all of those things are constantly. So we're serving on all these significant boards around town. I mean, I'm not unique. We all serve on different boards, and it's a lot, right, to do a good job with all that. And I'm again happy to do it. I think that it is it's a lot to expect that you can do a really excellent job on all of those parts all the time. And I think we all try hard, but that is, and I could go on and on that topic.
But
anyway.
It is something that needs to be figured out, so that, because you're putting in your best, it's to me it's like the district when they say, okay, teachers, you need to do this, this,
right.
And they're already overwhelmed and saying, well, don't you love the kids? Well, yes, I do love the kids, but I love my kids too.
Right, exactly. And at some point you have to say, this is all the capacity I have. It's like, I heard a great analogy recently, but if you think about, as we used to talk about computers having RAM, right? That random access memory. And when you max that out, even if they have the data storage capacity within the computer, if you don't have enough RAM to where you can access all these moving parts and all these things that are happening all at once, if that's being overwhelmed, you're not going to be effective.
No.
Right? So
it's just kind of a shutdown.
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, and you've got so many big things because you've got this and the interim housing that you're trying to do with both of them, and you have a lot of people that are saying, "What are you doing? What do you think? What do you
I have friends that'll ping me on you name it. Like, what's your ROI on that skate park? Like, coming at me like they're all angry about, and it's like, yes, I do consider myself a fiscal conservative. I can't say that there's a great ROI on a $3 million investment in a skate park that happens between two busy roads. I hear you.
Yeah.
Like, I hear you on that. And that said, I can also understand and respect our Parks and Rec department for trying to activate parks.
Right.
To keep them from being just, a place where, as we've had unhoused issues there, to say, what amazing thing could we offer our downtown community and really kind of activate our downtown, this downtown area. I get that. So I'm kind of on both sides of that. I did push back, especially in light of that skate park, when they were trying to put in what they call a pump track in Hawthorne Park. And a pump track, if you're not familiar, is like a concrete kind of a trail with some hills and dips and curves in it for people to ride their bikes around. And I was like, whoa, time out. Like, just no. Like, it's very expensive, first of all. Second of all, let's just talk to our community. Like, what do the neighbors want? Right? And so in doing that, there happened to be a lot of neighbors that were there. I said, what I'm hearing is that that this playground really needs to be refurbished or replaced. And that would bring value to that to that park and to where the neighbors could utilize it and other people could utilize it, and it would be a good use for it. And then let's just stop on the pump track. And the rest of council agreed and got in behind that, and that's what we did.
Yay.
So every once in a while, right?
There's a win occasionally.
There's a win, right?
Yeah. So how would you suggest that I know that you think making this a full-time paid position, and as I always say, it's opportunity cost. Sure. If we use the money that way, which I'm fine with, then something else has to go, because you can't keep going to the people and saying, we need more money. Right. We need another tax base.
And I've heard that before. It's just like when I proposed secondhand tax plan, right? Which is a tax cut for secondhand goods, right? Goods that have already been taxed, right?
Yes. Good point.
So I brought this plan forward. Actually, during my campaign, I was talking about it. Once I got onto council, I talked about it at length. I reached out to a lot of organizations to get support, wrote some articles. There were some good letters to the editor on it in support of that. Still in the process. We're still waiting for the city attorney's office to finish some things on that. But the idea is that this is not only a great targeted tax break, that if somebody's buying their kids' school clothes at the Goodwill, they deserve a tax break. Secondly, it also keeps things from eventually going to the landfill, right? So we're trying to encourage that circular economy.
Look at you.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So it's good on both sides of that, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
So I worked really hard on that, and put in a ton of time on that policy. And Greg Caton, bless his heart, says, "Oh yeah, that's going to cost us so much money. It's going to cost us like $600,000." And I'm like, okay, first of all, that's taxpayer money, right? That's not it's going to cost us. Yeah, you think it might reduce our inflow of cash by $600,000. Literally, we're letting the people keep their money.
Right.
In a targeted way, the people that probably need it the most.
Right.
Our revenues are always increasing as our economy grows, right? And it is growing. So that strategically is a great way to leave money in the pockets of our community,
right?
And do some other good things along the way with it. But what do I get back? But the pushback is, that's going to cost us like 6 police officers.
No, it depends on where you take it from the budget.
And which is completely untrue. It's misleading. It's disingenuous, and I respect Greg Caton in a lot of ways, but
he's not here, so
yes, but that doesn't, just because he's not here doesn't mean I'm going to disparage him.
Right?
No.
He's a smart guy. We disagreed on a lot of things. That was one of them, and there are different buckets. And when we talk about these buckets, and we talk about our $322 million budget, and you don't think we can cut $700,000 out of a $322 million budget in a way, and usually it's more like $250 million. Usually it's in the 250. It's higher this year because we're doing work at Persego. So call it call it 250 million, right? If you can't come up with 700,000 out of that, shake it out of the couch cushions. Not to say it's in the couch cushions, but
Right.
it's a figure of speech. We're doing something. We should be able to do that. Like, where else can we cut that money?
So that brings a question that Dennis had. So do you get to see the whole budget and understand it and know how you're doing in the past? Because Dennis just said, I did a quarter request to know what the financial reports were.
From last
And
year.
from last year, right? And he said, I got back, there's nothing there. There's no record, but it's due by the 30th.
Yeah.
So I think that if you're responsible for the money, you need to know how are we doing
We do get a budget report, right?
that you can understand.
There is, yes.
Well, because that would be like showing me the school budget, and I'm not.
Right. It's exactly like that. So think
because
about
it's too-
think about
it's
looking
hard.
thinking about looking at the school budget and thinking about doing it on your weekend, right, or nights,
Right.
and dive down through that. And now Dennis does a good job of getting into the details on those things, and I'm thankful for him
Right.
and his background in accounting. Right. I have had a lot of experience with accountants, including forensic accountants, to really know like what's going on behind the numbers.
Right.
So I have the experience and I look at it. Do I completely digest every single page of a budget?
No.
No.
You
No.
can't.
But
I mean,
but
I'm,
for my almost free job, like
Right.
I do a good job. I thoroughly look through the budget. I read it. I read not only the the summaries and all the highlights, but I dig down, especially for instance, into the police budget, which I care very much
Right,
about.
right.
They're really struggling to retain based on salaries among other things, and
well,
that
safety.
yeah, and so that's important for our community, and lots of moving parts again. But I dig down into those things, and I think, well, how can we do better with this, right?
Right.
Where else
Right.
can this money be deployed? And in the example of the police budget, when we look at us being so understaffed, like really understaffed, our department's doing a great job, but we have what we call salary savings in all those salaries that aren't being paid for the officers that aren't there, right? And that money can be utilized to help backstop those needed wage increases. Too, you think about like, well, how much overtime are we paying? Right, we're paying a ton of overtime, and these poor cops that are working, an extra, 2-3 days a week on top of their, 4 10-hour shifts. It's not good for them. It's not good for their families. So, and not that you asked about that.
No, and it's true because I worked just for a summer at Montfort's when they had the strike. I was quality control, and actually the people got violent because Montfort's had their own trucking company, and so they were saying, we're working 10.5, we're going to give you dinner, but at some point you're too tired to make a difference, and they're like, I don't want to do this.
Right.
So I can see that too. And what I guess I'm asking is, how can we get you to be able to have a little bit more say in what's going on? And you presented an idea before, besides the salary, but also having an elected mayor. And how would that benefit us to have an elected mayor versus we have a roundtable discussion?
Right. So So that's a whole complicated thing. And as we point out, I mean, we can really do a lot as council members if you can get the me plus 3. You need 4 of us to make a decision. And as I pointed out, we can make all kinds of policy decisions. We could make, and the example I used was, hey, it could be our policy that we show our appreciation for breast cancer awareness. We paint all of our fire hydrants pink, and that's what we do, and that's going to be our policy. Okay, I'm probably not going to get much traction on that. That's not going to be something that we do as a council, right? Even though we support that, and it's not to make light of it, just as an example. It's tough to get enough support from council because we have some different ideas to do things, and the elected mayor position is something that I do feel strongly about. I think Grand Junction deserves an elected mayor rather than having some people that kind of just like all you need is me plus 3, right? So 4 people kind of have talked already, and they decided who's going to be mayor. Hey, I'm going to be mayor this year, and then you can be my mayor pro tem, and then the year after that you could be mayor pro tem, and then hey, you could be my you could be I'll be the mayor, and then you could be the pro tem. It's like,
But you also said that even though it's having this, it's not elected or you're doing it internally, that the mayor does have quite of an influence.
Right.
And so how is that?
It's oversight. It's an oversized, influential position, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
Although our charter directs that it's just the president of the board.
Mm-hmm.
That president of the board, also referred to as the mayor, meets with our city attorney and city manager every week. They're on important committees like the agenda committee. So if you want something talked about, it can sit and die on the agenda committee. My secondhand tax plan, literally from the time I got on council, I was asking for it to be on the agenda and was ignored until I told Greg Caton. It's like, well, you know what? I talked to my fellow council members. I got me plus 3. I'll just bring it up on our next meeting. We'll just vote on it. We'll just pass it. Oh, we'll get it on the agenda for the next meeting, right? And that's the way things work. And that's just the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so for any future council members that want to run, that's pretty good clue right there, right?
Well, yeah.
So that is that's not healthy, I don't think, when you have a mayor or mayor pro tem that control something that tightly. They also have an oversized voice, so if you have a mayor that goes out and in some way says that, we're going to accept migrants into our community, right? What are people going to think? Oh yeah, they're for that. It could be completely on that person's own. They could have said that, and we never voted on it. We never talked about it. But if a mayor says something, it has teeth, like it or not, right? So to me, to say that we should have an elected mayor, and I'm not necessarily saying strong mayor. I'm willing to have that discussion. And strong mayor is different than just having an elected mayor.
Right.
For instance,
Exactly.
the Fruita mayor is elected. They run two-year terms, and they are kind of that spokesperson. They don't vote unless they need a tiebreaker. I think Fruita is generally their council's rowing in the same direction more often than maybe Grand Junctions is. For better or worse, it's good that we have, again, difference of opinions. But that is that's something that I've felt strongly about. I don't have enough. I don't have 4 that would support that. I don't think in within
Could
our
that be
council.
done in a different way rather than having the council determine that? Could it be petitioned on that we want to change
Absolutely.
way, and how would somebody do that?
So it would take it would basically take a petition and it's a certain percentage of the last vote, right? So I think it's in the neighborhood of 2,000 signatures, something like that, which doesn't sound like a lot.
But
if
it
you've
is.
ever
It
tried to
is.
gather signatures, that's a lot.
Yeah, been there, done that.
So and I'm guessing at that number could be a little less. But just for instance, that would be the way it would be done. That a petition would be brought forward in coordination with the city. I mean, obviously, you would want to say, hey, I want to have a meeting with the city attorney, city manager, and this is the idea. This is what I want to bring forward. I'm going to petition for this. If you have any input, I think that would be a good thing to ask to make sure it's crafted in a way that's consistent with our charter to where it could be successful. And then it's a change to our city charter, and then to say this is what we're going to do. So I would love to see that, and I think that there's, in talking to former council members, former mayors, I think there's a lot of people in our community that would also like to see that. It's just hard when you have a council that says, oh, well, we like it the way it is.
Right.
Why would we change it?
Exactly. It's
working for
benefiting
us.
Yeah. Exactly.
So and again, I'm not saying that to disparage my individual my fellow council members.
no.
I'm giving you my perspective on it.
Right. That's exactly what we want, and we're not disparaging you because we don't always agree on every single idea.
Yeah.
Like we don't agree on the golf course. No,
We were just talking about that.
me and the golf course.
Right.
I bring that up all the time.
Yeah.
And the one last thing, and Dennis again. It's just because he's yesterday. That's why you get a bunch of Dennis in.
Okay.
Is he suggested that the Robert's Rules of Order be done
Observed,
on Monday nights
Yeah.
too, so that you don't have the feel of the room was, and we have somebody nodding, and we say, well, this was a unanimous decision.
Well, we can't have a unanimous decision. What they're looking for is, it looks like we have consensus that about 4 of us kind of agree on this.
Yeah,
And
I'm just saying, put it
I-
out so it could be matter of record.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and I don't object to that. And actually, with Dennis had made a motion before during our meeting, and just for fun, I seconded it, and and it put us in a little bit of a tricky wicket, right? Situation where we like, okay, now what do we do, right?
Yeah, well,
We
you know
have a
what to
motion
do
on the floor,
Wednesday
it's been,
night.
right? Exactly. Well, we know by Robert's rules, but we're more informal than that on our Monday by tradition, and I think it's worth talking about and worth considering to say, for the sake of decorum and for the sake of accountability,
Exactly.
for what we're doing,
Right.
to say, here's, this meeting is going to be run by Robert's rules, which is a great way to run a meeting, and we're going to keep minutes, and we're going to make sure, not that minutes aren't kept, but to make sure that we know, like, an idea was brought forward, it was properly seconded, right? Or an idea was brought forward and what didn't even get a second, right? Just died, right? So, and then it was voted on, it passed, it didn't pass, right? I see
It is
value.
a matter of record.
Right. I see value in that, and I would certainly support that. And I think I've had that conversation with Dennis before. It's hard when when you have a meeting like that, and let's just say hypothetically, they're kind of getting a feel for the room, kind of say, hey, what do you think about this? And then maybe the mayor says, president of the board, mayor says, I'm hearing that we're all on board, we have agreement, consensus on A, B, and C, and then looks at the city manager and says, so let's go ahead with A, B, and C, and then maybe D, E, and F kind of come in there, and then we get more than we anticipated by the time it comes back to us, right, once it's gone through staff or once it comes to a council meeting. So I think that for the sake of accountability, that it's worth having Robert's rules in place in a more structured meeting. So.
And how would that come about? I'm other than because the city council obviously thinks it's working the way it is. How do you come in and enforce that idea from maybe the outside? Is there a way?
I don't know that there's a way to, let's say, petition that. I think that there could be a groundswell movement to say, I mean, if all of a sudden we were getting, 5 emails a day, right? Like the Orchard Mesa pool, right? Like,
Yeah, I bet you do.
I bet you do.
And I bet you're going to get more.
Right. And that's a little bit of an exaggeration. The Orchard Mesa pool, and we can talk about that if you want to, but they've done, I just want to talk about it in the way of pushing an idea forward, not so much about the pool, but the way they've been organized in saying, we really care about this thing, we're consistent, we show up at meetings, we talk to council members, we ask questions, we encourage additional thought outside of just what does staff say, because if that's all it was, that pool would already be done and gone, right? It would have been closed, but we've had some really great conversations around that, and I'm happy to share some of that with you if you want, if we have time. I know we're kind of probably going long here. But we have the idea to say citizens do and should, our community should have impact on the conversations we're having.
Right.
I love that engagement, which is why I do these kind of things. That's why I go have coffee with people pretty consistently, or neighborhoods that have concerns, or somebody emails me. I try to be responsive. I'm sorry if you've emailed me and I haven't emailed you back. I'll get to it. But my email box stacks up because people do email me because I email back, and then they email me back, and then and then I have 6 conversations going, and I'm trying to keep up with the new ones. But it's engagement, and that's what people want.
Right.
We should be accessible, and I will say that I'm not perfect, and I will get new information, and I will change my mind on things. I have been accused of flip-flopping, right, on things. Including even the Orchard Mesa pool, but to say, as I gain information, I will change my mind because I'm getting more facts, or I'm getting another perspective.
Well, that just leaves you open. I mean, I think that's a very good thing, to think that you would be open to suggestion. So you can't really call that flip-flopping.
Well, and I also I try to approach this with enough humility to say, I know that I'm not perfect, and I know I make mistakes. My heart is true when it comes to Grand Junction. I do love this community. Like, I've literally bled for this community.
Right.
Yeah,
police officer.
Right, exactly. 17 years as a police officer. nobody else on council has run through a door with gunshots going off, right? And I
I'd be
I have
running the
right
opposite way.
exactly. So I just have this feeling about Grand Junction that it's my home and I care, and I want to be like inclusive with our community and have conversations with people, no matter what their position is. They don't need to agree with me. I learn more when I'm talking to people that don't agree with me.
Right, because
Exactly.
they bring a different perspective.
Yeah. So
Yep.
Orchard Mesa Pool. Do you want me to talk
Sure.
about that? Okay. So that has been such a hard conversation, because it's this really, in my opinion, it's a very uniquely situated amenity, right? And as we've been talking about this, yes, that building is in poor shape. A lot of deferred maintenance, and part of that deferred maintenance issue is that with the school district owning it and the city managing the pool, it's like, well, who's responsible
Who's gonna pay for it?
those capital improvements? And the school's position was, well, of course the city is, and the city's position, well, we don't own it. Why wouldn't you do it? If I'm renting a property, as I have some rental properties, if I rent a property to somebody, like if there's a problem with the roof, I'm paying for it, right? Or if the furnace goes out, I'm paying for it.
Right.
Not them, not the tenant. So I can, and I understand both sides. No matter who's at fault, deferred maintenance has gone on,
needs to happen.
there's a lot of updating there that needs to happen. In recent months, I've had some really great conversations about, well, what else could we do? Let's think about this differently, and what other amenities might we bring? And I've had some really great conversations about, well, what if we brought in childcare? What if we brought in a healthcare clinic? What if we kept our pool, updated it, but did it in a way that made sense for our budget? Instead of saying, oh, we got to stroke a check in the first year, it's going to be like $12 million. We can't do that. Well, what's important now, right? The win. What's important now? Say, you know what? This year we're going to put in all new pumps and heating systems, right? Next year, let's replace that hot tub that's been down. And so
You don't have to do it all at once.
It's
It's just like if you own a home, you might not
Exactly
be able to
that.
remodel the whole house at once when you
exactly.
buy it.
When my wife and I bought our home back in 2011, we remodeled it. It was in terrible condition, and we stopped when we ran out of money. Right? We didn't use one part of our house. We just walled it off and waited until we had the money, and then we did a little more.
Right.
And I think that's just reasonable when you look at a project like this, and that's one of the benefits of buying an existing amenity, to where it's like, we can do this in a smart way. We don't have to necessarily say, right now we got to do it. Let's work on that budget and say, yeah, we did just spend $3 million on a skate park, right? We can figure out ways to spend some money on this pool, right? And it doesn't all have to be in the same year.
You could use that $3 million from the sustainability and for the pool.
Right, so so but
Poor Cody.
it's just I think that if we keep an open mind, and I do think that the county did a good job in saying, this is what we see our liability as. Here's $800,000, and we're out. Good for them. That was a good business decision, and it was also, I think it was fair for where they were at. I think that was good. The school district is doing the very best they can, based on the way their system works and their budget works. Like they can't run a pool, right? They can't invest into that building, and they need to make good decisions for their future. And the city is the only one capable of really running a pool. So I see it as this has great potential for us all to win and all to do good things for the community. I think the school district, the board is working hard to try and work with us to come up with a solution. And I think we just need to be working hard to come up with a solution too. And at the end of the day, could we lose that amenity on Orchard Mesa? Yes. I hope we don't. I hope we do something amazing down there. There's a lot of affordable housing in that area. There's a lot of subsidized housing, more coming online in that area. And for those kids to be able to get on their bike or walk to that park or skateboard over to that to that Eagle Rim Park, but also in the skate park, and also the Orchard Mesa pool. I think what a great amenity.
And what a great legacy, because I think about Lincoln Park Pool and how Larry Moyer said, I want the kids to be able to, everybody to have access to this, so at least one day a week they can go for free.
And
that is a legacy.
And that is legacy. And that is the type of examples I think we need to be looking for opportunities to do that kind of work in Grand Junction. And don't get me wrong, the community rec center is going to be that's going to be a legacy, and that Matchett Park, 200 acres out there of future fields, like that's going to be amazing regionally, not just Grand Junction, but regionally. That's an amazing thing. But let's carve out that Orchard Mesa pool. Let's do something great right there for Orchard Mesa.
Right, because
So-
they're part of the community, and maybe
Right,
the
yeah.
neglected part
At
of
this
the community.
at this particular point, Orchard Mesa has for a long time and still feels like they're kind of the stepchild of Grand Junction. Let's bring them full circle.
Yeah. Well, and there's no healthcare over in Orchard Mesa, right? There's no other recreation. It's like
Yes.
here. Well, actually, I say that wrong. There are other options out there. This is a great option for them.
And it's
So,
there
yeah,
already. It's got the bones.
Right.
Yes.
And there's been some arguments that say, oh well, the users of the pool live all over there out in the county. A lot of them will go to the new community rec center. And it's like, well, let's think broader. Like let's do something more. The urgent care or a health clinic. Let's think about a child care center, and let's think about a pool that's very accessible for people. And therapy. I mean, I've talked to people with a VA that like they need that pool for their
Wow.
patients to be able
Yeah,
to use that.
yeah.
And are they going to be able to use the new communities? The new community rec center? Is there going to be capacity? I don't know. So anyway,
Are they going to be able to get to it? That's
Right.
another thing,
Right,
you know.
right.
yeah. So anyway,
Anything else you guys want to talk about?
you got anything else?
I think I'm good. You've asked
Yeah,
all the questions
right.
that I
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
thinking
Yeah.
about. So
Oh, I talk about this stuff all day, every day. So
You're good. You're
I'm-
good at
I'm
talking
good.
about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know you've given me an opportunity to speak a lot about a lot of things. Thank you.
Well, we want you to come back to. We just keep wanting to have you and wanting to be informed. One last thing. I was just thinking when we did have Dennis, and he said, on these bigger things, right? And I just because sustainability is so close, would City Council be willing to, or you in specific, when there is something big, let us know so that we could be part of the decision-making process and say, sustainability is looking for some committee members, and
So
you might want to apply.
I've literally done that. Not necessarily you,
Right.
but when I looked at at some of our recent committees as they were put together,
Yep.
like housing,
Yep.
I said, yeah, no. Or the sustainability, I said, you have nothing but nonprofits on here, and everybody is of one mindset. Like let's
Right.
have some diversity of thought. So I asked for some additional people to be brought onto those committees, and they were. Now they were certainly a minority voice,
Right.
but I think it helps to have some differing perspectives, and just like I want to hear from people that have different ideas than I do. I think in a committee like that, it's important for people to say, oh wait, time out. What you're saying isn't exactly correct.
But we want to know so that we could even apply.
Right.
Not just.
I'm
say
not
that.
going to commit to you to email you when every time something comes up.
Well,
no, but
that's big.
Right.
what we're just trying to say is don't be cherry picking.
Right.
What you want, because those people will follow what you want to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Give it out to.
And I understand what you're saying, that the city can be perceived as doing that. Or sometimes if they do a survey, like we were talking about with sustainability, well, yeah, if you're surveying, students, if your survey's at the farmer's market and the library, you're probably going to get a certain answer, right?
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
And it's like, okay, even if it's statistically valid, is it representative?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Exactly.
That's
So-
what we've been
so-
concerned with.
And rightfully concerned. I would encourage you to stay engaged as far as looking at this at the city's website, that type of thing. Again, I'm not going to commit that I'm going
Not
to
yet.
email you every time. You guys do a good job of staying up on what's happening. I have
But
a
we
lot-
stay
right.
up too late. I mean, we're too late in the
Yeah.
process is
Yeah.
what we feel like.
Yeah.
No, we're just looking like maybe just in your district. The people you represent, they need to know what's going on with city
Well,
council.
I will
individually.
say this. If you pay any attention to my Facebook page, Cody for GJ, I still update that a fair
Okay.
amount.
Now that's
So-
a good way. That's
right.
a good way for
And
us
it's
to
also
know.
fair to where I'm not picking you guys out as my favorites to say, hey, you should know about this,
we
right?
we should be
Versus,
favorites.
well, you should
What
be.
is wrong with you?
Well, you should be, but
Yeah.
even, let's say hypothetically, you and I marched in lockstep
Uh-huh.
on everything, politically or
Mm-hmm.
for our faith or anything like that. Like that would be problematic if I was just feeding information to you.
Oh, absolutely.
Versus
Absolutely.
saying, how do I be equitable and make this accessible for more people? And I also, sometimes I'm putting a lot into my Facebook page, and sometimes not. I think I probably do more there than anybody else on council.
I didn't
So,
even know that there was a Cody for
Yeah, so-
DJ.
Yeah, that's
so look at Cody for GJ. I will do a lot of times. I'll pull like a newspaper article, and I'll I'll do a screenshot. I'll throw it up there, and then I'll do some commentary on it. Right? I've even done that for some youth edits, that are very particular about something. So I think it's a good way for me to engage with people.
Yeah.
It's a very good
I
way.
have I don't know. I think I have over 500 followers, which isn't
You have
in a city of
502 now.
yeah. I hope so.
Yes.
And invite your friends.
We will.
To
Well,
But
it's
I just
actually,
didn't know. I just
with
didn't know.
you having that many followers, that's actually almost as many as they had vote for the sustainability project.
Right. So, and I think I have a great diversity there, where I have people that are of all kinds of different mindsets, and will challenge me, right? And and that's fair.
I would love that for all the city council members to have that, so that we could get in touch with them, because sometimes too you form an opinion of someone that you don't know, and it's called prejudice, and that person could have some things that you don't like that they present, but then you go, oh, but they have all these other good characteristics that I can work with.
That was one of the best things for me when I was campaigning, is that through that platform in particular, I really engaged a lot. Somebody would fire some question at me, and it could be about, a lot of times it was about things that had nothing to do with City of Grand Junction, whether it's the border, whether it's abortion or gun control, you name it. And it was like, okay, I have an opinion about that. I'm not going to talk to you about that. Let's talk about Grand Junction and things that matter to Grand Junction.
Right.
And if you can draw a connection to there, I will answer your questions.
Right.
And it was me. It wasn't like some robot, right? So we were, and I would dialogue, and it was all public, right? And other people could see the conversations. And so that was a good way for me to engage. And I try to continually do that. If somebody posts something, I try to respond. And if it's just mean or whatever, it's like everybody sees that. And I'm responding with kindness. And people get it.
Yeah.
Like they know that I'm just doing the best I can.
Right.
Well, and
somebody that
Facebook
might
is
be
Facebook.
angry.
You're going to get all kinds.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Well, you've been watching Mesa County Compass. This is the truth as we see it, the facts as we know them. You decide. Thank you, Cody.
Thank you very
Thank
much for joining us.
You bet.